Remember when electric vehicles were slow and inconvenient? Well, over the last 5 years or so, range has increased dramatically, and so has performance. The problem in recent years is that the fun-to-drive ones cost an arm and a leg. And then this came along, the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5 N. Before we get into this video, do us a favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons below to get all of our latest content. As the name suggests, this is based on the existing and excellent Hyundai Ioniq 5. The N refers to Hyundai's high-performance wing, which is a bit like BMW's M division or AMG for Mercedes. Unlike the N line models that are essentially appearance packages, these legitimate N vehicles pack a serious punch. It's easy to see the standard Ioniq 5 under all of the Ioniq 5 N's sporty embellishments. Up front, the nose gets these blacked out elements, much larger intakes, and these splashy red accents. The black panels are mandatory with whatever paint color you choose. And to be honest, it's not really my style. It's obviously less jarring on darker colors, but if it were me, I'd vinyl wrap this just to blend it in with the rest of the body. Compared to the standard Ioniq 5, this N model rides a little bit lower and is wider by 2 full inches. That helps to contain the larger wheels wrapped with summer performance tires. These flared fenders give it a more athletic stance too. Around back, the distinctive pixelated taillights remain, and you get this massive diffuser underneath that extends the length by just a few inches. Now, I really liked the Ioniq 5's design to begin with, and these changes just sort of further things. But what do you think? Is it sportier or maybe just a bit awkward? Do you agree that the black accents are just a little bit too much? Let us know in the comments below. Packed in the floor of this Ioniq 5N is an 84 kilowatt hour battery pack. The standard model maxes out at 77.4 kilowatt hours. It feeds power to an electric motor up front and in the back for all-wheel drive. Combined, they make 601 horsepower and 545 pound-feet of torque, but a go-fast button on the steering wheel kicks up to 641 horsepower for short bursts. That's more than double the power of the standard Ioniq 5. And that's also good enough to launch it to 60 miles an hour in only 3.2 seconds on its way to 162 mile an hour top speed. Yowza! There is only one trim, and it comes standard with performance upgrades that include better brakes, an adjustable suspension, and electric differentials for improved traction. Underneath, the 5N is much stiffer thanks to additional welds and bracing, and cooling has been improved too. Range is estimated at 221 miles, which comes up short against the 303 miles for the supporting Ioniq 5. Like its sibling, the N is capable of extremely quick DC fast charge rates. With a maximum of 238 kilowatts, it can replenish the battery from 10% to 80% in only 18 minutes. This all comes together perfectly on the road, so let's get to my favorite part of the review. In general, the engineers that dream up these wonderful machines go unnoticed. But you may recognize one of the names behind this. In 2014, Hyundai managed to steal away Albert Biermann from his post at BMW, where he helped to create some of the most engaging powerhouses that we get today. And as I drive this Ioniq 5N, I can tell that there are little hints of his touch in almost every way this drives. As far as acceleration goes, well, it's immediate, it's quick, it's inspiring, and it's awesome. And when it comes to braking, it actually feels more like an internal combustion engine. And there's a good amount of pedal effort, and it's really easy to modulate and trail it off into corners, making it an absolute blast to drive. Handling is, of course, where this thing shines. With a low weight down in the belly and the summer tires on the wheels, man, this thing just rails through turns. And it's, man, like all day, every day, that's all I want to be doing. And there's a lot of technology that goes into this, and keeping it on the road and sending power to the exact wheel that you want. And the best part is, you don't feel any of that interfering. In a lot of ways, depending on which drive mode you're set, it feels like a rear-wheel drive sports car. And speaking of all those drive modes, you get the standard sport, normal, and eco, but with this N model, you get a ton of different settings for suspension, throttle response, and the sound, which is a really important thing when we talk about this 5N. It sounds great, which is weird for an EV, I know. When they introduced this last year and they told us about these synthetic sounds, I rolled my eyes so hard I can see the inside of my skull. But after trying it out, I gotta say, I really like it. I mean, it's almost a guilty pleasure now. I mean, here we go. Yeah, and it's synced up with the paddle shifter, so it feels like you're driving an internal combustion car. Now, the sound that I really like is the one that we're playing right now. Yeah, and when you let go of the throttle, you get these wonderful little crackles like a Jaguar F-Type. And there's one thing about these sounds that I really like, which is it gives you an idea of how hard you're really driving. Otherwise, it's just silent and it feels more like an appliance. Now, this sound, I like it because it reminds me of a Subaru WRX STI minus the turbo whoosh, and it actually sounds kind of nice and smooth. So yeah, there's a few other choices. They sound a little too space AG or spaceship-like to me, but yeah, this one, I can listen to this all day. Now, when I am tossing it through these corners, it's amazing that this thing weighs 4,800 pounds, but with the weight so low, you really don't feel it that much. Now, I can't really unleash the full fury on this public road, but I will tell you, in a not so humble brag, I was allowed to drive this on the racetrack in Korea, in the Korea International Circuit where they used to race Formula One. And I can say, yeah, this is really good on track too. Part of it is just the way it's balanced, but also all of these drive modes. So there's a slider in the settings where you can proportion how much power goes to the front wheels or to the rear wheels, completely changing the character of the car. Now, if you wanted to do that in real life, it would take you weeks or maybe even months, but it's like a video game, like Forza or Gran Turismo. You just move a little slider and there you go. There's also a drift mode, but I wasn't a big fan of that. It kind of hits the brakes or throws power in a different way, and I didn't like it so much. I just threw all the power to the back and let loose. The big question for me is, how would this do on a track day? And well, they already thought of that. They have something called endurance mode, and they break it into 20-20-20. 20 minutes of track driving, 20 minutes of charging, and then right back to 20 minutes of driving. So, in theory, this should hold up for a full day on track. But that's not all there is to this Ioniq 5N, so let's pull over and check out the interior. Much like the exterior, the interior has a lot of echoes of the standard Ioniq 5, spiced up with some sporty bits. You get the same dual 12.3-inch monitors here, one for the instrument panels and a touchscreen here for the infotainment. You also get this cool little gear selector here, which is really quite intuitive. You just kind of twist it forward or twist it back to go to reverse. It's really easy and really quick when you're doing 3-point turns. Now, the climate controls here don't have physical buttons. They're just one of those electric panels, so it's not that easy to adjust the temperature while you're driving, but there are voice controls that'll do it for you. It'll just take a couple more seconds. Now, the spicy sporty bits include these seats here, which have some deep bolsters on the sides that keep you nice and anchored while you're cornering. They come standard with the Ioniq 5N, and they're also heated and ventilated. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are wireless, and thankfully, they give you a wireless charging pad too. As you'd expect, it comes with all of the typical advanced safety features expected of any car today. And on the road, they function just as they should. There is one feature that I'm not too hot on, and it's the blind spot camera. Now, when you hit the turn signal, it turns on a little video feed in the dashboard here, showing you a live feed of what's going on in your blind spot. Now, in theory, it makes a little bit of sense, but it can be a little more distracting in practice because you're driving along and then something shows up and it kind of draws your eye away from the road itself, which is not so good if you're turning or changing lanes. I don't like it, so I just turn it off, and it's especially distracting at night. As far as materials quality goes, it's about the same as the standard Ioniq 5. You get a lot of hard plastics here and there, but they look really good, and they're not in places where you're going to come in contact with. Your elbow points are nicely padded, and you get a little bit of padding up top as well. As far as storage goes, you get this large tray here with a phone charger, as well as a little accessory tray on the side. You get these big cup holders here that are kind of over-engineered, like a German car, as well as this rather small center armrest bin. Overall, You have just enough space for all your personal effects, but it's not what I consider generous. Here in the back seat, I have a pretty good amount of space. I'm 5'10", sitting behind the driver's seat that's set for me, and as you can see, I'm not wanting for more legroom. And I have a couple more inches of headroom too, so overall, yeah, I'd be fine back here. Materials quality is about the same as up front. Slightly soft, mixed with some nice padding for your elbows. You have a pull-down armrest there with some cup holders. You do have this awkward pod in the middle with these two USB-C charge ports. These seats get an extra shout out because they slide quite a ways, so you have the flexibility for cargo versus passengers, and also pretty good amount of recline here. So yeah, it seems like they thought about the important stuff as far as performance as well as for convenience. The Ioniq 5N has a cargo capacity of 26.1 cubic feet. That's just slightly smaller than the 27.2 cubes that you get with a regular Ioniq 5. That's pretty negligible when you consider that's only about the size of a basketball. There's not any storage underneath except for maybe the charge cord and some other smaller things, but you do get a power liftgate that is standard on all 5Ns. It should be obvious that I really love this Ioniq 5N. It's an absolute blast to drive, yet it won't beat you up on the daily commute. I'd consider it as a track day plaything if I had a hookup for high performance tires. As it is, I think I'd blow through a whole set of Pirelli P0s in half a day, especially when you consider how much weight we're throwing around here. Now, prices start right around $67,000, which is a relative bargain when you consider it against any other EVs that are as fun to drive. The most direct rival is the related Kia EV6 GT, which churns out a solid 576 horsepower and also costs about $5,000 less. Since these are both made in Korea, they're not eligible for the $7,500 tax credit. But if you check into leases, there might still be a loophole there that might apply in your case. The Ioniq 5N is initially being sold in select zero-emission states and a few others, so you might have to cross state lines to get one. But honestly, it's worth it. Other alternatives include the BMW i4 and Tesla Model 3 Performance, but I contend that this little Hyundai is still more entertaining on the road and on the racetrack. So if you're in the market for a fun performance EV that won't put you in the poorhouse, would you go for this Ioniq 5N or perhaps the Kia EV6 GT? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and we'll see you in the next review.